Welcome back to bmaster79. In this video we're taking on ielts speaking part 2 and part 3 with the cue card. Describe a website you often visit. You'll see the full 1 minute of brainstorming, a complete Band 9 model answer, and then all 5 part 3 questions answered in full. One thing before we start. Our candidate is Lynn, an invented persona. Please copy the method, not the content. The examiner is not scoring your choice of website. They are scoring how you build the answer. First, the shape of part 2. The examiner hands you a card, a pencil, and some paper. You get 1 minute to prepare, then you speak for 1 to 2 minutes without interruption. If the examiner stops you at 2 minutes, that is a good sign. It means you filled the time. Here is the card exactly as it was given. Describe a website you often visit. You should say how you found it, what it is about, and how often you visit it, and explain why you often visit it. Notice that last line. It is separated from the others for a reason. Now, how to use that 1 minute. Write keywords, never sentences, because you cannot read a sentence aloud and sound natural. Spend most of your minute on the final bullet, the why, because that is where the highest marks live. And plan your last sentence so you never trail off. Bullet 1. How you found it. Notice that Lynn does not say a friend recommended it and stop there. She dates it, she gives the reason she was looking, and she gives the emotional context. A reading rut. That single phrase does more for her lexical score than a whole sentence of plain description. Bullet 2. What it is about. The trap here is listing features like a brochure. Instead, Lynn gives one clean definition, a virtual bookshelf, then moves straight to what she personally values about it. Definition, then significance. Bullet 3. How often? A weak answer is every day. A strong answer adds duration, time of day, and variation. Most days 10 minutes in the evening, and it spikes when she finishes a book. 3 layers instead of 1. Bullet 4, and the most important one. Why? This is where you stop describing and start arguing. Lynn gives 3 separate reasons. It removes decision fatigue, human recommendations beat an algorithm, and it beats scrolling social media. Reasons plural, with a contrast in each. This is what her actual page of notes looks like after 60 seconds. 20 or so words in total. Nothing here is a sentence. Every line is a trigger for something she already knows how to say. Here is the full answer, in 4 parts. Part 1. The opening and how she found it.
The website I'd like to talk about is Goodreads, which is essentially a social network built around books, and it's become a bit of a fixture in my daily routine. I came across it more or less by accident about 3 years ago. I was going through what I can only describe as a reading rut. I'd start a novel, lose interest 50 pages in, and abandon it, and a friend on my course mentioned that she logged everything she read on Goodreads. I signed up the evening purely out of curiosity, and I've been on it ever since. As for what it actually does, it's essentially a virtual bookshelf. You catalogue what you've read, what you're reading, and what you want to get to eventually. You rate each title out of 5 stars, and you can write a review if you feel strongly about something. The real draw, though, is the crowdsourced element. Before I commit to a 400-page book, I can skim a dozen reviews from ordinary readers rather than relying on a publisher's blurb. There's also an annual reading challenge where you set yourself a target and the site nudges you along. In terms of frequency, I'm on it most days, though only for 10 minutes or so, usually in the evening, as a sort of wind down before bed. That said, my usage spikes whenever I finish a book because I'll log it, rate it, and then fall down a rabbit hole looking for the next one. The main reason I keep going back is that it takes the guesswork out of choosing what to read. I find recommendations from real readers far more trustworthy than an algorithm pushing whatever happens to be trending. On top of that, the reading challenge appeals to my competitive streak. Seeing that little progress bar creep up is oddly motivating. And honestly, it's a far healthier way to spend 10 minutes than mindlessly scrolling through social media.
Here is the whole thing together so you can see the shape of it on one screen. Look at the proportions. The how often section is only 3 lines, while the why section runs to 6. Not every bullet deserves equal time. Pause the video and read it end to end. Then read it aloud and time yourself. You are aiming to land between 1 minute 40 and 2 minutes. So why does this reach band 9? 5 things. Every bullet is answered in order, but never announced. The detail is concrete rather than vague. The asides sound spoken, not memorized. The why section is the longest, and it ends on a deliberate sentence rather than fading out. Now part 3. The examiner drops the personal topic and zooms out to society. Answers here run roughly 3 to 5 sentences. The structure that never fails is state your position, give your reason, add an example, then add a nuance or a limitation. Question 1. What are the most popular and least popular apps in Vietnam? Notice that this question has 2 halves. Answer both, or you cap your own score.
By far the most popular are the messaging and short video platforms. Zalo is almost universal here because it was built domestically. Everyone from my grandmother to my bank uses it, and Facebook and TikTok dominate in terms of sheer hours spent. Shopping apps like Shopee have also taken off enormously in the last few years. At the other end of the scale, I'd say the least popular are the ones that demand sustained effort or a subscription, premium news apps, productivity tools, that sort of thing. People here are quite price sensitive, so anything behind a paywall struggles to gain traction when there's a free alternative a tap away. Though I should say that's an impression rather than something that I've seen hard figures on.
Question 2. What's the difference between the internet and television? For a difference question, name the axis of comparison first, then compare along it.
The fundamental difference is the direction of the flow. Television is essentially a one-way broadcast. A handful of studios decide what's on, and you fit your evening around their schedule. The internet, by contrast, is participatory and on demand. You're not just consuming, you're searching, commenting, and uploading, and you pull the content whenever it suits you. The second big difference is curation versus breadth. Television is heavily curated and regulated, so the quality floor is relatively high, but the range is narrow. Online, the range is effectively infinite, but so is the volume of misinformation, so the burden of fact-checking shifts onto the individual. I'd sum it up like this: television is one shared national experience, whereas the internet is a million private ones.
Question 3. Why do people like to read the news on the internet instead of on TV? Give the obvious reason quickly, then go deeper. That contrast is what separates a 7 from a 9.
Convenience is the obvious one. Online news is there the moment something happens, whereas a television bulletin makes you wait until 6 or 9 o'clock, and by then you've usually seen it on your phone anyway.
But I think the deeper reason is control.
Online you can be selective, skim the headlines, skip the sport and read in depth the one article you actually care about. A bulletin forces you to sit through everything in the order the editor chose. There's also the archival side of it. You can search back through years of coverage, follow a link to the original source, or read 3 different outlets take on the same story side by side, which simply isn't possible with broadcast news.
Question 4. Is the library still necessary? Why? This is a yes or no question, so commit to an answer. But concede the other side first. It makes your position stronger, not weaker.
I'd argue it absolutely is, though its purpose has shifted. If you define a library purely as a warehouse for books, then yes, it's been largely superseded by ebooks and digital archives, but that's a very narrow definition. In practice, libraries have reinvented themselves as public spaces, quiet, free, heated, with reliable internet, and that matters enormously to people who don't have those things at home, students in cramped accommodation, elderly people who want company, job seekers who need to print a CV. They are also one of the last genuinely non-commercial spaces left where nobody expects you to buy anything. So the necessity hasn't disappeared, it's simply relocated from the shelves to the space itself.
Question 5. What kinds of people would still go to the library to read and study? A kinds of people question wants categories, not one example. Give 3 or 4 groups and a reason for each.
Students are the obvious group, particularly around exam season, partly for the resources, but mostly for the atmosphere. There's a kind of collective pressure in a silent room full of people working that's very hard to reproduce at home, where the fridge and your phone are 3 meters away. Beyond that, I'd say researchers and postgraduates who need archives or journals that aren't freely available online, and older people who grew up with libraries and treat them as a social hub. And increasingly, remote workers and freelancers use them as free co-working space. So it's a surprisingly broad mix. It isn't just bookish types, it's anyone who needs somewhere to concentrate.
Here is the language bank from part 2. 8 expressions, each with a plain meaning next to it. Learn the ones you would actually say. A phrase you force into a sentence sounds worse than a simple word used well. And the part 3 bank. These are the abstract discussion phrases. They are the ones that let you sound analytical rather than merely descriptive. A quick word on the criteria. This answer was built against the 4 public banned descriptors: fluency and coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation. And the caveat, which matters, band 9 here reflects our own quality assessment against the public descriptors. It is not a certified examiner score. That's the full walkthrough. 3 things to do now. Cover the model answer and record yourself for 2 minutes on the same card. Then swap in your own website and rebuild all 4 bullets from scratch. And post your answer to part 3 question 4 in the comments. Subscribe to BMaster79 for the next cue card. See you in the next one.